The reason this is my go-to chocolate chip cookie recipe is because it's made with simple ingredients that you likely have on hand. It's quick. You only need one bowl and you don't have to chill the dough before you cook it. And also, it's totally delicious. Don't get me wrong, I love all those fancy chocolate chip cookie recipes with brown butter and flaky sea salt and multiple types of chocolate, but I keep on going back to this recipe because you can't beat the time for taste ratio. I have my stand mixer where I added my cold butter and sugars, and I'm creaming them together. What I should have done is I should have cubed the butter up. You could see that it was getting stuck in the paddle of the mixer. So if you make this recipe, I highly suggest that you cube the butter before putting it in and save yourself the hassle of trying to scrape it out of the paddle. After that's been creamed together, you don't see any more chunks of butter, you're going to add in your eggs. After you do that, you're going to mix well to make sure all the ingredients are combined together. And then you're going to add in 1 cup of flour at a time. And I always start the mixer off a little bit slowly when I'm adding in the flour. That way it doesn't spill over the sides. After you finish adding in your flour and very lightly combine it, you're going to add in the salt, the baking soda, and the cornstarch. And then you're going to mix it for another few seconds until it's just combined together. Don't forget to scrape down the sides. And then you're going to add in the chocolate chips and the chopped walnuts. A few years ago, I kept seeing this same recipe popping up. It was a copycat Levain Bakery chocolate chip and walnut cookie recipe. From what I understand, the Levain Bakery in New York City is a fancy bakery that sells very large and delicious cookies that people rave about. I saw many different versions of the copycat recipe, and they were all basically the same with just slight variations here and there. One of the things that they all had in common is they made very large cookies. And the first few times that I made this recipe, I also made very large cookies. But I found it a little bit overwhelming to only have really large oversized cookies. So I changed the recipe around a little bit so I can make smaller size cookies. Now when I make this recipe, I make about 24 medium sized cookies instead of 8 extra large cookies. What I do is I use a small ice cream scoop or some spoons to portion out 24 cookies and make them all the same size, and then I freeze them overnight. I saved those to bake that night, and you can see what they look like without being chilled. These ones are now frozen solid, and I'll store them in a bag and put them in my freezer. That way you can have just a few cookies if you have people coming over. These cookies have a delicate crunch on the outside, and they're nice and chewy on the inside, and they're delicious, and I hope you enjoy them.